Hello there.
Hey, hey everyone. Can everyone hear me well?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. So everyone, welcome to the first AMA for Blox and an SSV. We'll kick it off in a minute. Let me just check. Yeah. We'll kick it off with a minute. We've gathered a bunch of questions from the community the past week. And hopefully we can get to all of the kind of the big subjects and spring a conversation around them. And of course, if anyone has any other questions, you're more than welcome to try and pitch them to this call, or of course, just contact us on our Discord or any other means. And so, yeah, I think we'll start with the first question if we can. Awesome. So the way it goes is we have a presentation showing for everyone, and so everyone can see the question, and I'll try to answer my best. And in the background will let me know if anyone wants to add something or anyone else should kind of speak as well. And so hopefully it will go smoothly. So I'm Alon. I'm the CEO of Blox. And the first question is, what is SSV and how does it relate to BloxStaking's current platform? So it's a two-part question. What is SSV? SSV stands for Secret Shared Validator. It's a research project started by the Ethereum Foundation quite a while ago. And Blox actually started to cooperate with the EF about more than a year ago, I would say. First is kind of a general interest into the technology, and later on it evolved into a proof of concept, and then a testnet, and actually the big public testnet, which for SSV, which will actually start next week. SSV is really a great technology, a great infrastructural technology for distributing a validator key for Ethereum 2 or validator for Ethereum 2 into trustless operators to operate that validator. And they do that and coordinate by a consensus layer. And kind of the user flow is making the kind of the usual deposit for an Ethereum validator, and then securely splitting up the secret key for the validator into shares. Those shares are assigned to each of the operators, and you can select as many operators as you want. SSV or the consensus layer dictates you'll choose 3F+1 operators. And F can vary. So it's 4, 7, 10, and so on operators. And those operators each get a share, and via the consensus mechanism or consensus protocol, they decide on what to sign and then use threshold signatory scheme to actually execute. And the great part about it is twofold. One, we distribute the infrastructure, and it's an infrastructure which is fault tolerant, which means that if one of the validator operators are offline or gets hacked or compromised in any way, the committee can still continue and operate that validator pretty securely. And the other part is that once you split the shares and send them to the operators, you don't have to have the validator key online anymore, which is a big thing. As much as we can, having wallets or private keys in cold storage is obviously preferable. And so that's SSV. And I think we have a question about it, so I'll kind of skip forward into the second part of the first question, which is, go back to the second part of the first question, which is how it relates to BloxStaking. Well, actually, BloxStaking is what really initiated our whole interest with SSV. The real vision for BloxStaking in general was always, how can we stake, but without compromising on kind of the core values me and our team holds, which is people should be in control of their keys, and you should distribute the way you do staking in general, the way you interact with your assets as much as possible. And BloxStaking is a really, really great platform, and we have a lot of very happy users. But from the get-go, we knew there's some limitations in the one validator instance kind of deal, which kind of is dictated by the Ethereum protocol. And And so we knew we wanted something more, and that kind of really sparked our interest in SSV. And we see BloxStaking as one of those operators on the SSV network. If we kind of talked before about operators running the validators and a user being able to choose those operators, BloxStaking will be one of those operators on the SSV network. Hopefully people will select us to operate their validators because we're doing a good job. Yep. Next question. What are the advantages that SSV brings to the staking? Can you please give a breakdown? So almost all current staking infrastructure for Ethereum are dictated or really constrained by the very protocol that Ethereum has. A lot revolves around slashing, which really makes it very hard to have redundancy and robustness built into staking infrastructures today, because you cannot really run two instances of the same validator because you'll risk getting slashed. And of course, that really becomes a single point of failure. Most infrastructure is really built around that kind of pivotal point. And it's both a single point of failure in terms of where the keys held, but also in terms of the liveliness or is your validator up and running, and your ability to create a robust and a robust infrastructure for that. And so SSV really comes to help with that, because you're distributing the keys of a single validator. You can create that redundancy and fault tolerance without actually risking slashing, because the protocol, because of the consensus layer. And so that's a big deal, because if we are as a community, looking at staking as something fundamental, which will happen and already happening, and if we're thinking about more and more Ether coming in and staking, and of course after the merge and after withdrawals are enabled and so on, it will become even bigger. Infrastructure is definitely something important to think about. And also we should think that more and more services, staking services, are coming online. And if every single one of those services needs to build their own infrastructure, that's very hard, especially doing so in a secure way. And we saw, of course, terrible examples of what happens when things go south. And so my vision of SSV is really to serve as that infrastructure, which it's not just an infrastructure, but also it's a superior technology for the existing infrastructures, which almost every staking service and every individual even running a validator are pretty much using. Next. And feel free to jump in if anyone has a question. Especially anyone on the call and of course anyone watching us. And so we're getting into the third question, and which is really the what is the vision for SSV? I'll maybe start with why is that vision needs to be infrastructure, not something else? Because SSV is a technology and it can be implemented in various ways. If I'm looking at the landscape today of staking, and Ethereum staking in specific, and trying to project into the future what will happen, then I think it's pretty obvious that first there are going to be a lot more Ether coming in, especially with the merge, especially where when transaction fees will be distributed as rewards, and of course MEV in the shape and form it will be set after the merge and after people actually start getting the idea of how MEV can influence all of those points. And so a lot of more Ether should and will be deposited and staked. So that's one really powerful trend happening in the industry. The other one is, of course, that we're seeing more and more staking services, or what I like to call staking flavors, popping up almost daily. And those are basically your staking services from something like Blox all the way through staking pools, liquidity tokens, Kraken, Coinbase. All of them are really flavors of the same thing, which is staking. But they all have the same common truth, which is whatever you're doing as a staking service, somebody needs to run a 32 ETH validator. And that's a very powerful message, because it means that it doesn't really matter how fast or how big the industry grows. There's a fundamental truth which needs to be served in terms of the value proposition it has, and also in terms of the challenges it has. And that's why I think SSV as infrastructure is so powerful, because of course it's technically superior to what we have today's infrastructure, but focusing on that base layer where other companies and other people can build on top, I think is very, very crucial, because at the end of the day, somebody needs to run 32 ETH validators. And so that's really our vision for SSV. Our vision is to have SSV as ubiquitous as possible in the staking environment or staking industry, and have a lot of people and companies adopt it as their infrastructure and configure it in such ways that really suits their business. And so you could imagine really big staking providers like Coinbase or Kraken, for example, maybe setting up a few of their own SSV operators, using other operators to distribute their infrastructure, having maybe 7 or even 10 operators per validator because they want to be really cautious, all the way to the DIY validator, where a user which might set a few validators and choose to use 4 different operators configuration. And so that's kind of our vision for SSV. And that vision includes a bunch of things in of itself, but I think focusing on that infrastructure layer where we have such a dynamic industry which grows both in terms of the number of staking services and the ETH coming in, I think that's smart, and that's very suitable, I think, also to the kind of community we have, which is fairly technical, fairly aware of different risks, and have a very focused mind on security and stuff like that. And so yeah, that's kind of our vision towards what SSV could become, and what we strive for.
A follow-up question on that one.
Yep, go ahead.
So the question is, the way you've described the vision is really for splitting whole validators that somebody owns across multiple operators. Is there also an integration in the future where pooling of less than 32 ETH is possible with SSV integration?
Yeah, I think that part of that vision is to have staking pools built on top of SSV, and enabling their users to stake less than 32 ETH, and by extension also stuff like liquidity tokens and so on. I think that our mission or our vision is really to focus on being the best infrastructure we can. So, current pools and future pools, which will come online in the future, will select SSV as their infrastructure instead of something else. And by that, and by proxy, you'll have SSV-enabled pools. I think our vision less involves around us building a pool and liquidity tokens, and more so being the enabler for others to do so, and using the SSV technology for doing so in a much better way and secure way. I hope it answers the question. And again, feel free to jump in, anyone on the call or on YouTube to follow up, ask, and so on. Great. So our first question: how will current Blox users benefit from new development on SSV? Is there anything special we will get? And so one of the things I'm really excited about, and also it's one of the biggest challenges in opening any network, is actually having a community. So developing technology is one thing, but bootstrapping it with people and interest and contributors and so on, it's very difficult. And one of the ways we actually made a decision to go with SSV in the way we describe now is actually the community itself. And I think the community will play a big part in it. We haven't really specified it yet, but one of the things we really want to do is a few things. But one is to have an incentivized testnet. And by doing that, we hope that we can get the current staking users on Blox and enable them to participate even before mainnet for SSV, participate and use their key vault, for examples, and use their current setups to also integrate and test SSV and get rewarded for it with the incentivization program. So that's one thing we're thinking of. The second thing is actually some program for maybe airdrops for existing Blox users or which stake, and a few other ideas. The big thing for me is really to how we bootstrap this incredible community, because it is an incredible community. The level of engagement people have in these communities is amazing, and so we try to find ways in which from one hand, people come and want to stake, and maybe they don't want to get bothered with anything else. They just want to get good service. And so we should definitely respect that. But on the other hand, we have a lot of people who are very interested in future developments. And so we want to connect them to this SSV network. And I think that it's through incentivizations and airdrops and stuff like that, we can at least start the conversation from there, and hopefully get more ideas along the way. On the, let's say, the more product-oriented step around that point is when SSV actually becomes operational. Of course, the idea here is to have some bridge, which is going to be very simple for existing Blox stakers to choose if they want to use SSV as their infrastructure or remain in the current infrastructure with key vault and everything. And so I think that that's another level of engagement that we want to create there. And of course, if anyone has any ideas around that, we'll be happy to hear. We're constantly thinking about how to approach it, because again, we want to be respectful for people who just came to have a staking service, give them good service and answer their questions. But on the other hand, we definitely want to engage with people who want more. And so if anyone has more suggestions, we would love to hear that. But I think the incentivized testnet is going to be pretty significant in that regard.
Do you guys have a timeline for the incentivized testnet for validators that are currently staking with you?
No precise dates. I mean, so in terms of roadmap ahead, next week is kind of a soft launch for the testnet, where the initial partners and so on will kickstart their nodes, and we'll do some sanity check. If that goes well and we feel comfortable with a testnet running well, we'll obviously open it up to the community. And I think that not long after that, we'll start with some kind of incentivization program. One of the things we thought about was to actually bootstrap the POP tokens and NFTs for various things we're doing now and later on in the network itself, to bootstrap on that in order to have incentives and so on. So for example, if you'll run a validator, if you run an SSV node and so on, you'll get POAPs to symbolize that, and on top of that, we can maybe airdrop or create incentives. We don't have exact dates yet, but we will publish them as soon as we can. I really hope to do that not too long after the testnet actually launches.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, I love the idea with the rewards. I think that's going to be a big hit. Quick question too. So you said we'll have the option of staying with the key vault or going to SSV as current stakers. So that's going to be an option going forward.
Yeah.
In perpetuity. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. My personal belief is that, and again, speaking personally, my belief is that SSV is superior to anything that is out there today. And so I personally don't have any question about it. I will move to SSV. But of course, we want to be respectful for people who are not sure or want to see that work and then move or not move at all. And so, yeah, we'll run in parallel, and we'll see the adoption rates. I mean, I believe that a few months after mainnet, maybe most of the people will already be moving to SSV just because of the benefits. But we'll see. And also keep in mind that Blox will be one of the operators on the SSV network.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Question number 5. How will SSV compare to centralized staking pools in terms of rewards? What will be the split between operators and validators? So that's a really good question. SSV is focused on infrastructure. And so it's kind of asking the same question with AWS or any other cloud service. How do you split your revenue between, or as a company, between your cloud provider and your business? The answer is you don't. SSV, as any other infrastructure layer, is going to be priced by the operators themselves. The operators will set a price, and anyone choosing them will pay that price. But the entire rewards are going to the validators themselves. Now, because it's a very open market system, that is, that operators are free to choose whatever fee they want to charge, I would imagine that there will be some equilibrium point where, if the rewards are going higher, if the rewards are going lower in terms of Ethereum 2 rewards, then operators will adjust accordingly. But I'm very much focused on having SSV's infrastructure, and so there is no rev sharing. Operators will charge as much as they believe it's worth charging to make a profit, and also to serve as much clients as they can. And so I don't see any sharing of revenue or rewards on the roadmap.
Is that going to be dynamic? So as the prices or the rewards from staking change, will the operators be able to just switch it at a moment's notice, or do you lock into a contract for, say, X amount of months, or how's that going to work?
We're still figuring that out. We'll have actually in the next few weeks, we'll actually sitting down and actually building up the specs for it. I personally believe that they could change it dynamically, but there will be some maybe periods in which they need to commit to. So in order just to not bloat the smart contracts and storage there. But we don't have a 100% defined spec just yet. By the way, I mean, we're calling the upcoming testnet, we're calling it the phase 2 testnet. There's a planned phase 3 testnet, which is actually building on top of the phase 2 testnet with all the tokenomics and the stuff we're talking about, and the token and so on top of it. And so that's why we don't have a spec just yet. We're really focused on the technology, getting it up to speed and working. And then in a few weeks, we'll start building towards phase 3 testnet, which includes all the tokenomics. And so we already started developing the contracts and so on, but the spec is not 100% yet.
Okay. One more quick thing. So just to clarify for everyone out there, the rewards, since they're being pulled, you have multiple operators, your rewards are coming into a single place for yourself. You're going to be getting that.
Yeah, I mean, the operators are only in charge of your validator key. And so whatever withdrawal credentials you set for the validator, that's where the money goes to. After the merge with the transaction fees, it really depends on the various pull requests, which are open now for the Coinbase address. And so we'll see what gets adopted by the official spec, and will follow. So one of the key proposals right now is to actually use a new prefix for the withdrawal credentials, which can act as the Coinbase itself on the Ethereum 2 protocol level. And so if that gets adopted, then we'll obviously adopt that as well into the SSV protocol, and then everything will simply go to the defined address.
Very cool.
Awesome. Next question. Can you please break down how the SSV token will be needed in the network? Sure. And so the SSV token is the network token. It does a few things. One is all of the different payments between the users and the operators. Basically, the fees are paid with the token itself. And we're thinking about a cool mechanism for kind of continuously adjusting it depending on the different prices. But we'll share that once we have our kind of clear goal on that. And so that's one thing. The second thing is governance. And that's a key point in the SSV network. all of the different operators working on the network, anyone can become an operator, but there's a special class of operators called kind of the verified or curated list of operators, which are verified operators which passed through the SSV DAO and presented their case in order to get listed on the curated list of operators. It's kind of the same as we see with, let's say, Aave's listing process, where you have committee with very well-defined parameters for assessing a new operator and so on and so forth. Those curated list of operators are all accepted, rejected, and so on by the DAO. And that's a big responsibility, because if the DAO makes the wrong decisions, it can really crash the network. And if it makes the right decisions and gets the best operators in, then the network flourishes. And so that's another major job of the DAO, which is strictly connected to the network itself and has immediate impact. The third part of it is actually the DAO at large. The DAO at large will have resources in the DAO wallets and various decisions that it can make. And so we are thinking about stuff like really technical and specified grants for SSV development and so on and so forth. And so that's going to be another DAO responsibility, which is not strictly connected to the protocol, but it is connected to the SSV community or SSV effort at large. I think all of those three things are really, really important. And if we get them right, I think we can flourish as a community and network. And if not, then it's devastating. But it basically puts the power in each one of the community members to be engaged, to understand what's happening, and vote accordingly. Awesome. Next question. What are the advantages of holding the SSV token? We have an internal, we call it token enhancement, which we are still discussing. We haven't made it public yet. Maybe we should, but the token, it's kind of basically extending the existing token model I just talked about. One of the things we want to do is have the ability to take the SSV tokens, stake them, and by staking them, you can create insurance on the different operators, and most of that insurance revolves around performance and stuff like that. So, for example, if an operator doesn't perform as expected and so on, the insurance kicks in. But on the other hand, those SSV stakers, which can select a particular operator to stake and insure, actually get some of the rewards back and so on. And so they can actually get rewards on their stake and on the risk they take by staking it on a specific operator. And that's a really, I think, a powerful mechanism, but it also serves as social voting, because you can imagine that operators with more insurance are held by the community as more trustworthy. And also, there's another parameter, which is validator versus insurance ratio. That is, how much validators a particular operator is assigned to versus how much insurance that operator has from the community. And so that's a really, really powerful social voting mechanism for, again, distinguishing between the best operators and so on. And so that's a kind of a suggestion we have internally. We haven't formalized it just yet because of time constraints, but that's something we'll be rolling out in the next few weeks. And I believe that's a great method for people to use their SSV tokens in the protocol to actually give utility and value to the protocol and to its users. Awesome. Number 8, what will become of CDT? What was the original purpose for it? So what will happen with CDT is we'll build a bridge between a one-way bridge between CDT and SSV. And all of the CDT holders will be able to convert in unidirectional way to SSV and then participate in the network itself. Well, of course, we'll publish all of the different details, I think, in probably 2 or 2.5 weeks. And we're just getting the different contracts audited and so on. And so that what kind of made it a bit slow. But that's the purpose of the kind of that bridge between CDT holders to SSV, and basically carrying them into this great and new network. And the original purpose of CDT, we actually thought about originally to have CDT pay for the BloxStaking service. And that was originally the intent behind when we started out with staking back in December 2020. But as we evolved into SSV, I think we found a better way or better utility for it. And so we repurposed that original idea into SSV and having that bridge between them. And hopefully we can get all the information out in a few weeks about it. Awesome. Next question, 9. What kind of decisions will the DAO be entitled to make? How much authority does it actually hold? So I think about, in terms of decisions, we actually talked about kind of the different responsibilities. The DAO can make any decision it wants. The DAO is in control of everything. One of the original, or let's say one of the scope, or let's say the objectives we have as a company is to create as much engagement with both users and operators as we can. And that means also to give people power to make decisions and feel part of that network. And so the DAO will eventually have as much power as it wants. Any proposal which passes with voting is the proposal the DAO passed. And I think obviously it has its own challenges, but the upside is to have a much stronger community which take initiative and make decisions. And so the DAO or the DAO examples we're looking up to are the big DAOs everyone knows about, right? The Aves and compounds of the world. None of them are perfect, but they're definitely like a beacon of reference in terms of what we should do or what we shouldn't do. And so we're hoping to pour as much power as we can into the DAO.
I think you alluded to it before, but the DAO is going to be based off similar to like Aave and all those places where how many tokens you hold is how much power you have in voting, or you're going to have some other kind of mechanism to distribute these votes? So
we're not taking the Aave code. We are using snapshots for the voting. So offline voting, it's the dominant way to do that today. But yeah, I mean, it's basically how much tokens you hold in your in the wallet you're voting with, and then it's simply a matter of summing up the different votes. Yeah. Maybe in the future we'll do delegations and stuff like that. We haven't got into it just yet. Cool. And number 10 is the end state that pretty much the SSV operators rule the purse merge staking ecosystem. So I don't know what, I mean, nobody rules anything. I think the operators, especially the curated list of operators, what they strive to do is really create revenue for the businesses, right? And I think that purse merge, I think there's a lot of challenges. MEV is definitely one of them. But I think the operators will work together with the users to really figure things out. But I do hope that as many people and as many companies and as many pools will adopt SSV as their infrastructure. I think that's necessary, and hopefully we'll see, 50 or even 100 operators running on the network, and so it could be very distributed as well. A lot of people can use SSV, but SSV in itself is distributed, and so hopefully we'll see a large adoption. Awesome. Number 11. How about the centralized exchanges who are staking giant pools of ETH for their customers? I definitely think that the big exchanges like Kraken and Coinbase will use SSV, but also I think it will take time. Those are very big operations and it takes time for adoption. But I think their challenges are so big that I think it will be foolish to just not consider a superior technology to use. But I do think it's going to be a struggle, and getting them on board is is very challenging. But I do think that, you know, adoption comes from within, and so if we get the leading staking providers, the leading stakers, and so on, be early adopters of the technology, I definitely think it will influence the decision of the big centralized exchanges to adopt it as well. We've opened up conversation with almost all of the big exchanges, and I can tell you they're very interested, but adoption will take time, and that's fine. I mean, they have a lot of responsibility for their users, and they want to choose wisely, and it's our job to do the best work we can in order to make their decision as simple as possible. MEV. MEV is maximum or maximal extractable value. It's a new research field, which is fairly new, which talks about the ability to look at transactions not as just transaction fees, but rather the actual transaction value, specifically when it comes to stuff like front running, back running, and so on and so forth. Basically, the value extracted by those types of traders, which create value by looking at the entire DeFi landscape and choosing very carefully how to place their transactions and to extract the maximum available value from them. MEV is really becoming an amazing thing of its own, and MEV in staking is particularly challenging, regardless of SSV. In staking, it has its new challenges, and we definitely are looking into it and are definitely looking at how to integrate MEV in the most transparent way possible. I do think it's something we'll have to tackle. There's a few ideas floating around, one of which is the separation of block proposer and the block content into two separate entities, which can create a market for searchers or block proposers and block builders. So that's very interesting. We're looking into that as well. But MEV is a big part of, I mean, I think it's undeniably one of the hottest topics in now in mining, but of course, once we move to staking altogether, that's going to be one of the hottest topics on staking as well. SSV, I think, can play a role in remedying some of the challenges in MEV. It's still under heavy research, and we'll update as we go along and as we have more insights into it. Awesome. This is the last question we had. We wanted to keep it under 40 minutes for your sake and everyone's sake. Maybe kind of last round of, if anyone has any other questions they want to cover, you can submit them here, or of course always on our Discord as usual. Awesome. So thank you, everyone. It was really, really great. We should do it definitely more often, and we will. Thank you for joining our first AMA, and feel free to follow up with any other questions you might have on the various channels we have. Thank you, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.